Okay. In this video, I'm going to focus specifically on volume. More specific than that, I'm going to talk about the very basics and beginnings of calculating volume from an algebraic standpoint, using some of the basic starter shapes that we have here. So to do that, you need to recognize and pay very close attention to the formulas that are necessary to solve your problem. So first and foremost, we have a rectangular solid. So a rectangular solid or cube has a volume that is length, width, height. So remember, volumes are three-dimensional objects now, so we're providing a depth into your shapes. A circular cylinder has a volume of pi r squared times height. And what you need to remember about all of these is that when we're talking about pi, most of the time we're talking about 3.14. A cone is going to be 1/3 pi r squared height. So notice the difference between a circular cylinder and a cone is that a cone has this 1/3 piece to it. The reason for that is because if you take a look closely at a circular cylinder as it relates to a cone is roughly 1/3 the volume. A sphere is going to be 4/3 pi r cubed. And then the last one is a rectangular pyramid. So think about the pyramids of Egypt. They have a square bottom, straight triangular sides. So we have 1/3 length, width, height. Now again, the same thing, your rectangular pyramid versus a rectangle. They have the same type of base, but a rectangular pyramid is roughly 1/3 the volume of a rectangular solid. So here we're just going to do a bunch of examples on calculating volume, and in this case we're going to round to the nearest hundredth whenever necessary. So the first thing you have to be able to do, and that most things or most problems don't tell you, is what shape you actually have. So the first step in all of these problems is identifying which shape you have so you can identify which formula to use. This shape here is actually a, we call it a right circular cylinder, which means we are going to use volume equals pi r squared height. So to do that, which just simply means we're going to take 3.14, multiply that by my radius squared, multiply that by your height, and this is going to give me centimeters cubed. Now notice it's cubed because I'm doing 3 of them. So 2 comes from squaring, 1 comes from the height, thus gives me 3 altogether. Multiply that all out, and we're going to end up a volume of 326.56 centimeters cubed. Okay, let's look at a different one. This one here is considered to be called a rectangular solid, which means its volume is going to be length times width times height. So here, notice again, I've got these fraction things going on and my direction said to round. So my volume is going to start off by being 12 5/8 times 6 times 3 2/3. So essentially you're going to put all of that into your calculator. And so here we've got meters cubed. And so put it all together and you're going to end up with 377.75 meters cubed. Now yes, Doing these, a lot of them, your calculator is going to come in handy, especially when trying to work decimals into the problem. But do remember, if your calculator fails, you can always do things longhand. Longhand would say, first convert this into an improper fraction, and then use long old school division to change it over to a decimal and go from there. Okay. This next one is a sphere. And so with the sphere, our volume is going to be 4/3 pi r cubed. Now notice here I've given you a diameter. So here I'm telling you that your diameter is twice the radius. I've given you a diameter of 10 is twice the radius. Divide everything by 2 means 5 feet is your radius. That's the first thing you have to do, is calculate what you need. And then we'll simply go ahead and put it in. So my volume here is going to be 4/3 times pi times my radius cubed. And so in this case, we will end up getting 523, for example, and 1/3 feet cubed. In terms of decimals, it would be 523.33 feet cubed. Alright, so this one here is considered to be a right circular cone, which means its volume is going to be 1/3 pi r squared height. So in this case, notice my radius is 9. I've given you a height of 16, so here we're going to have my 1/3 times 3.14 times 9 squared times 16, and this is going to give me inches cubed. So once you multiply all of that out, you're going to come up with 1,356.48 inches cubed. This one here is your rectangular pyramid. A rectangular pyramid has a volume of 1/3 length times width times height. So here, 1/3. So here we would have 1/3 times 11 times 9 times 10, and this is going to give you meters cubed. So in this case, we would end up with 270 meters cubed. Now the very last thing we have is this little word problem here. So we're told that you have a 6-inch tall ice cream cone filled with solid ice cream, where the final scoop of ice cream forms a perfect hemisphere above the top of the cone. It says, what is the total volume of ice cream in the cone if the top has a 2.2-inch opening? So this is telling us that my height here is 6, my opening is 2.2, and so here what we need to do is first we need to look at the cone. So the cone is going to be 1/3 pi r squared height. So in this case we're doing 1/3 times 3.14 times, we've got to do the 2.2 as a diameter, so divide it in half, square it, and then multiply by your height of 6, and this is going to give you inches cubed, so the volume of your cone. In this case, when you multiply that all out, you're going to end up with 7.5988 inches cubed. Now that doesn't mean you've finished, because we still have to take a look at this ice cream part on top. A hemisphere is half of a sphere. So we need to take our sphere and divide it in 2. So to find a sphere, we've got 4/3 pi r cubed, and whatever we calculate there, we got to divide that whole thing by 2. So in this instance, we're going to have our 4/3 times 3.14 times, again, remember this was given as a diameter, so we got to take that 2.2 divided by 2 to find that radius. We're going to cube it and take that whole answer, divide that by 2. When you do that, you're going to come out with 2.79 inches cubed as being the volume of the hemisphere. Therefore, your total ice cream volume has to be your cone volume plus your ice cream. So when you add the two of them together, you end up with 10.39 inches cubed. So that is everything you need to know to get started with working with volume in a very generic and beginning method. Make sure you pay very close attention to the formulas that you have been given and identify the shapes that you have to use. If you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.